Welcome back to Gems Podcast. For those of you that are new to the community, thank you so much for tuning in. I am Miss Genesis Amaris Kemp, the founder and host. For those seasoned listeners, welcome back, and you're in for a treat. With me today in the hot seat is a special guest by the name of Meryl Klemow. And today we're going to be diving in for a fun segment, which is all about laughter and reducing stress. But before we do, let me share a little bit more about who Meryl Klemow is. So Meryl Klemow is a woman of many different hats, made out of paper airplanes. She is the co-host and co-producer of the Campfire Sht Show podcast, a comedy chart-topping weekly show that has been going strong for 4 whopping years, talking to people about their shit show moments in life. Meryl is the founder of Pre-Canceled Apparel, a tongue-in-cheek conspiracy culture brand. And she does stand-up comedy and has performed at venues such as Flappers in Burbank, La Jolla Comedy Store, and the Hollywood Improv. Meryl also is a contributor to the LA Girl Los Angeles lifestyle blog, where she covers events and happenings around the Los Angeles area. So without further ado, let's welcome the woman behind it all, Meryl Klemow.
Woo! Thank you so much. It's so nice to finally meet you too.
My pleasure, Meryl. And you're a seasoned listener, so you know how we do it here on the show. So there are 2 ways I like my guests to connect with the audience. One, being an icebreaker, or 2, a rapid fire 10 question game, emphasis on rapid. What are you in the mood for?
Let's do an icebreaker.
Okay, here we go. We're breaking the ice with Meryl. I want you to share something crazy that you have done in your life, or a fun and interesting fact about yourself that not even your community knows. But if you're feeling frisky, combine the both of them.
Wow. Ooh. And this is G-rated, right? Family friendly. I can't admit to anything illegal, right?
Unless you want someone to track you down. But
that's so funny. No, I would say I think I'm gonna go with, I think maybe a lot of people feel like this too, but I think I have my job is in entertainment, and a lot of my work is forward facing in the way that I do have a lot of fun, and it looks like I have a lot of fun. But I feel like my secret is behind the fun. There's a lot of work, a lot of strategy and organization. And so I think people would be surprised how um not like my crazy character I am in real life.
awesome. And thank you for sharing that. So, audience, I hope that gives you a little bit more insight to Meryl. So, she does do work behind the scenes, and it actually is work, because whether you're being a stand-up comedian or whatever profession you're in, you have to strategize in order for the content that you're putting out to take root and for other people to grasp your creative content, whether you're a blogger, a vlogger, a stand-up comedian, or whatever the case may be. Sometimes, yes, it's fun to have kicks and giggles, but it takes work. And whenever I say it takes work, sometimes that work is personal, for your personal development, because you do have to take time away for self-care in order to recharge and rejuvenate, so you can show up in your authentic self.
You just like synthesize that like beyond perfectly of what I feel like you just took what I feel and I cannot communicate well, and you just made that perfect. Yeah, I think being someone that like writes a lot, I have a lot of output in the world. It's crazy to me how much time I need away to process things and come up with a perspective, and just how you said, like self-care. So yeah, you really you got that.
Thank you. So, question for you before we really dive into the meat and potatoes. Do you have a favorite comedian or someone that inspired you to start your journey?
Like comedians, like it's so funny because I think stand up, I didn't really grow up loving a lot of stand up. I love more humorous. Like I think, I don't know if he's canceled now or whatever, but obviously Mark Twain, I loved his ability to have like a play on words and more of his clever way of writing. Like I'm not sure if he was the best human or not, but I think in terms of writing and a brain, I loved Mark Twain. But the more I get into stand up and writing in general, I just love Joan Rivers, and I feel like she's the way I see that she crafts a joke and does it so well. I think the more I learn about comedy and the more I do stand up, the more I see what like an icon Joan Rivers really is.
Oh, nice. And thank you for sharing because I'm hands down a comedy lover. And today we're going to be spending time talking about laughter and reducing stress because people say laughter is good for the soul. Then sometimes people laugh till you cry, you laugh to help you cope. And there's so many different ways that we laugh on a daily basis. But what happens when the laughter stops? That should worry you.
Yeah, for sure.
So, with you being in stand up comedy, and I love how your bio talked about you wear many hats and they're paper airplane hats. Tell us what you mean by that.
I know exactly what I mean. Okay, so I feel like I do a lot of different things, whether it's in the podcast world or the comedy world, but I don't take any of them too seriously. So in like the actual tangible sense, I feel like sometimes the hats needs to come off and fly off because you have to wear another one. And then yeah, exactly. And then in the comedic sense, just that where it's like it's all silly, where we have these jobs and these roles and I don't know. I'm someone that I don't like to be stuck too much with like an identity of like, okay, she's this person because she has this job or it's like this label. I like to just be humans and have a human experience. And so I've always been this like kind of, I think bucking against like aligning with like one type of job or like one way that a human is.
I like that. So it definitely sounds like you're that wild card factor, and you're not going to be the one to be in line with the status quo. You're going to push the status quo because you're Meryl Klemow. You're not trying to be like everybody or anything else. You just want to be you and you want to be authentic. You want to show up, and you're not going to be hunker down or buckle down to one specific identity, because the minute that you do that, you feel like maybe you're becoming stale or stagnant. Would you agree to that sentiment?
So much, very much so. I have had jobs before that I felt like uh I viewed it as giving me self-worth because I was attached to something, and then I've really let that go of like there's no brand, whether you work for Vogue or like any like Apple, whatever. I just think at the end of the day, all these things are just concepts, and so it's like so yeah, I think that's kind of more of like the tortured artist part of me that never wants to be like a associated with like these bigger ideas. But then obviously it's nice to be in a world where you're part of a community. So yeah.
So I know you mentioned that you haven't been doing stand-up comedy for that long. So what was that driving factor where you've had that aha moment and you say, you know what, comedy is what I need to be doing?
So it was a friend that told me that she would punch me in the face if I didn't do stand up. so yeah, I'm new to the stand up game, meaning that I've been doing it for about 3 years, which sounds like a long time to be doing anything. But I have found from other stand up friends and people, comedians, that like the first 4 years you're really just a baby and you're just learning everything, and it really takes years upon years and hours of practice to be honed in your skill of anything, but of course stand up is one of those things. So yeah, I had always been comedy stand up adjacent. I was doing a lot of things that were in the realm of comedy, like writing. I did morning radio for a little bit in San Diego. I have a podcast that we mentioned for years, and I was always friends with a lot of stand up comedians, and they would tell me like, you should do it, you have to do it, and then I just wouldn't do it. And then finally I was at a house party, and this comedian I really love so much, I'll give her a shout out. Her name is Audrey Stewart, and she's a great comedian, performs all around Los Angeles and all around the country now. And she told me that if I don't do stand up in the next couple months, she was going to find me and punch me in the face. So it was part passion and part intimidation. So the next month, I think I enrolled in a stand up comedy class, one called Pretty Funny Women, that was really wonderful and really gave me the support I needed. And I felt like it was the right place for me, and that helped me go ahead with my dream. So yeah.
That is awesome. And I love how she held you accountable because she says, if you don't do it, I'm going to punch you in the face. And depending, like, if she said that to someone else who didn't take it as a joke, or they'll be like, hold up, what do you mean you're going to punch me in the face? Like, not going to happen.
Yes.
So I love that you took it as encouragement, but then it also was what helped you put your foot forward and get going. So you busted a move.
I definitely busted a move. And honestly, it's so I'm very grateful, and it's so nice when you have someone that's already doing something and they pull you into it and they have that vote of confidence in you. And also that says a lot about my friend that it takes like a big confident person to also recognize that someone else might be good at something that you're doing and invite them into it. Cuz I think a lot of times there's a lot of insecurity in my world, and a lot of like people almost like seeing good things and then kind of shutting it away, but it takes a really strong person to like call someone in that they think would also do a good job, because the stand-up world could be very like weird and insecure.
Yeah, I could see that kind of like, the corporate world. It could be a dog eat dog world, but
Yes.
someone who is confident and secured in their craft, they see somebody else who is doing the same thing as a way of collaboration, not competition, because they begin to view it as a higher altitude and a different vantage point to realize that there's enough room for all of us here. And just because she's a comedian and I'm a comedian, that doesn't mean that we're going to operate in the same lane, because we're each going to have our different jokes based on our lifestyle and things that pertain to us, where we're crafting it to make people laugh. And when you make people laugh, you're then in turn reducing their stress. And whenever you're reducing your stress, they're going to want to come back and get more laughter. So then you're going to get paid to do something that you love. Holla at your girl.
Exactly. Wow, you're so good at like taking concepts and synthesizing them. Honestly, that's like a brilliant skill. And yet, I think that is exactly like when we're operating in abundance, we're able to see other people's skills and invite them into our world, even if we know they're going to do well. I think that is such like a big, strong energy that all of us should carry with us. And it's like we all need other people to pull us up and to believe in us, and it means so much. I think sometimes we downplay how much it means to have others believe in us, and that is like something I try to do, where I try to look around and I'm like, okay, who might need like a kind word or some encouragement. So yeah.
Yes. I am like all here for that, because each one help one, each one reach one, or however that saying goes. And I just love what you're doing, because I love to laugh. I love to have fun. Some people say, oh, that's Genesis. That's that firecracker. So now I call myself the firecracker and the mindset hacker, since I do
Uh-huh.
visionary coaching too.
I love
Um,
that.
so, since we're all about laughter here and reducing stress, we all know that the times that we're living in right now is very, societal focus. There's cancel culture, the great resignation. There's so many things going on. So, how can we see laughter as something that everyone should do on a daily basis, whether you're watching a funny show, a movie, going to a comedy club, or etc. Let's give the audience some insight on how they need to start tapping into laughter on a daily basis to reduce the stress.
That's great. Well, first, I feel like I really honor that all of us have different things that we view as funny. Like, I think that's also what is like very funny and kind of gut busting for one person is not that funny for someone else, or they're just like, I don't get it. So I think honing into the type of comedy that you really like, whether that's a funny movie or whether it's just, going to a park and watching people and people watching and seeing, I think I would, I would classify myself more as like observational, where if I sit and watch things that are meant to be funny, it's not always like a home run for me. But the more I'm out in the world and the more I'm at a fancy restaurant or something that like is a juxtaposition of like what comedy is, then the more I find comedy in that, if that makes sense. Like, for example, I just had a friend the other day that we were at a really fancy place in Beverly Hills, and her dog was dry heaving on the pool deck, and like the dog was throwing up, and just like the vision of that, this like little dog just throwing up everywhere on this like fancy pool deck was so funny to me that I really like fell to my knees, and I was laughing so hard. So very long story short is I think it's important for people to tune into their sense of humor and to follow that, whether that is going to a comedy show or whether it's just calling a friend that you think is funny and riffing with them one on one. I think that's a beautiful way. And then the second thing is just to be open and listening to what another person is saying or what is happening in the world, because I think comedy is there all the time and things are really funny, even if it's just nature, even if it's just like two birds having their own dance and it's a funny thing. So I think to be appreciating comedy is to be aware and open to your surroundings.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And even sometimes, like we as individuals, sometimes we say something and we don't mean it to be like funny or humorous, or maybe it's our tone of voice or how we said it. And then the person next to us, like if it's our friend, they just started cracking up. And then you're like, what's so funny? And then their laughter is contagious. And then you start laughing. And the next thing you know,
Yes.
you're laughing so hard until you're crying, or you're laughing so hard until you're about to pee yourself. And you're like, I didn't even mean it to be funny like that, but it was like hilarious and they were cracking up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I honestly think having a sense of humor, whatever, it doesn't have to mean one thing, but I think that's a sign of like an overall healthy person. And I think the better people feel in their body and their mind, the more they're going to interact with life in a humorous way, you know? So I think that's too. And I understand maybe some people aren't there yet, and maybe they're feeling like they're super stressed out or super like burnt out in life. But I think the more in tune and the healthier you get within yourself, then the more just like you can see the humor and the ridiculousness in a lot of things.
Yeah, most assuredly. So they kind of just let things take a back seat, like have that laissez-faire approach, not where you're so loose with certain things, but just realize, okay, does this really matter right now? Is it going to matter a year from now, 5 years from now, or 10 years from now? Or should I just laugh about it and move on? Or like this one song says, I love the movie White Chicks. And you know that, I think it's that one scene in the movie. It's like, wait, is it White Chicks or it may be another movie? So correct me if I'm wrong. And it's like rolling with the homies, and
Oh,
then she like,
Clueless.
yes, and she
Yeah,
does that
Clueless. I
thing.
love that scene. That's a great scene. Yeah. That movie is such a classic. That's like one of the movies I can watch over and over again.
And another funny part, in well, this one is really White Chicks, like where they were telling the Yo Mama jokes, and it was either Marlon or Sean Wayne's, and they're like, "Your mama's so old. Whenever she breastfeeds, her milk is like," and then like the powder comes out of his hand.
Powdered milk. I love it. I love it. The whole Wayne's family is just like legendary in the comedy world. I mean, they're so talented.
Yeah, so I mean, like just little things like that, like quirky, funny, serious, funny, stupid, funny, whatever.
Yeah, and I always think I try to view, of course, we have serious moments in life, but I feel like I view life as a whole as like a comedic error almost, you know. So I don't know if that's a mindset or if that's built into me, if it's like a nature or nurture thing, but I think I will always look at life through the lens of more comedy, even if it's tragedy, you know?
So, question here. So, whenever you got into the comedy scene, did your family members or some friends begin to view you differently than they did before?
That's a really good question. Oh my gosh. People in my life have been so encouraging. I think because they can see it has been it wasn't out of left field, I think for me. Like it's always been inside of me. So I think for a lot of people that I knew, it was like that makes sense. I've had some friends honestly say to me that they've been nervous for me in like a not in a doubtful way, but in a way that they knew I was good at writing, but I think the performance side of like what I was doing gave them a little bit of anxiety for me. But I always told them like you don't have to be nervous for me. Like I'm nervous enough for myself as it is, and like even if I fail on some nights or some occasions, like it's okay. It's really okay. So I didn't have anyone that I'm very lucky. I didn't have anyone that doubted me or that like totally viewed me different. I feel like a lot of people do. Like I can't imagine being someone that like would be trying to do something and have their friends and family not support them. Like, you know, I feel like very empathetic for people in those situations because that's really tough. And so but I did have one friend that wrote another friend and said, I think she said like, "That's so cool. Meryl's doing comedy. I never knew she was that funny or something." And so I made that like the quote from one of my flyers. Like, you know, the same way that like New York Times would review something. So it's like this girl Jeanette that I went to school with and said like, I didn't know she was that funny. So yeah, I think I think honestly too, I lived for a while in San Diego, in the city of San Diego, and now I live in Los Angeles. And so I think if anything, like my friends from San Diego didn't really know me as a stand-up. And so in Los Angeles, like my friends more know me as a stand-up. So anything, it's more like different cities where it's like my friends from San Diego are still learning about this new endeavor, whereas like LA is just kind of like I came in with a new identity.
Yeah, and sometimes just switching sceneries is also good because you're tapping into a new pool of people. And some people are maybe, uptight in one area, and in the next area, they're like, hang loose, bro, like it is what it is type of
Yeah,
atmosphere.
absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, but I think I really encourage people if you are in the situation where you're trying to do something and the people around you don't recognize that, there are so many ways for you to connect with people that do believe in you. Whether, now that we have online communities, and I think for people that were trying to do stand up directly, it's like the more you go to open mics or the more you go to places where people are doing comedy, the more you're going to be able to have that support rather than just like, I don't know. I think sometimes people close to us are scared of us doing something because they're scared for us, or they could never do it, or they don't understand it. But, so I think a lot of times in a good way, I kind of don't listen to that, but I've been very lucky that like I have a very, very supportive family and boyfriend and friends. So yeah.
Yeah, and I love that. And it goes to show you that sometimes like you need to find out who your tribe is and who's in your tribe. Are they rooting for you to succeed, or are they rooting for you to fail because you're doing something that they always wanted to do, but then they were too afraid to start it. And then whenever they see you do it, it scares them crapless, and they're like, dang, man, I could have did that. Well, yeah, you could have, but you didn't do it, and now I'm doing it, and now you're over here acting like negative Nancy instead of being that supportive friend that is going to root for me and cheer me on because you want to see my success. You're not going to root for me or cheer me on because you want to see my downfall. So that's a part of like changing sceneries, changing circles, and etc. Know who your tribe is and know who's riding for you.
Yeah, honestly, that is so good. And I try to do it on the flip side too, where I'm like, okay, what of my friends do I like have a certain idea of their identity where I'm like, okay, this friend is bad with money, or this friend can't keep a job down, and like allow yourself to honestly be surprised by how people change, because I think we view each other in this like kind of like three-dimensional way. It's like, this is this person, they aren't good at this, they are good at this, but then a few years later it might not even be who that person is anymore. So in a good way, I try to let my friends surprise me. And if they're interested in something new, or they take like a total 180 in their life, even if I think it's strange, I try to just like trust them and trust their process too. Because, I think after 4 or 5 years, like we all change so much that, not that we don't know each other, but that we don't have like the right idea of what we all are a lot of times.
Yeah, it's part of growing. And just like the world is evolving, we as individuals evolved on, a daily basis, a monthly basis, and etc. So either go with the times and grow with the times, or get left behind in the past.
Absolutely. You said it. I love it.
So another question for you, Meryl, as we begin to get ready to wind down, is working at the improv. I think there's so many great talented comedians that all started at the improv. So have you opened up for any big people, like any headliners? Is that what they're called, headliners?
Yeah, that's so good. Yep. And so, yeah, I would say the shows that I've got to do, I've done some shows now at the Hollywood Improv and the Comedy Store. It's been around. I'm trying to think of like no one like super, super like next level famous on my shows. They've been in the next room while I'm doing it, but they're not on my shows. But at least I'm on. So I would say I've gotten to perform with like um I'm trying to think. I mean, on our podcast, we've had some good names of people that have been on Comedy Central, but performance wise, I've been on a lot of shows with people that write for like Netflix shows and that write for shows on Hulu. A lot of times I feel like I'm performing more with like writers than with like the Whitney Cummings of the world so far, so we'll get there. But right now I'm more like um a lot of writers. I just performed with the girl that wrote for What We Do in the Shadows, a great a wonderful show, I think on Hulu. And yeah, so I would put myself like right now I'm in the category where I'm performing for a lot of great writers.
Oh, okay. That's super cool too, because writers are so creative and
So
talented.
much.
And
Yeah.
I think I'm biased because I'm an author.
Yeah. Yes. And they're often like the brains behind a lot of things. So yes, totally.
Yes, and I fell into being an author. Like my background's oil and gas and energy. I spent 12 years in the corporate setting.
Whoa. What's your book called?
Chocolate drop in corporate America, from the pit to the
Wow.
palace.
That's amazing. Well, everyone should go buy it. I need a copy. I'm gonna buy it too.
And as you can see, I love, love, love to laugh. I'm trying to hold it together because y'all, something funny that you may not know if you're not a mama is sometimes when you laugh so hard, sometimes you can tinkle because after you have a baby, some women are like, you just can't control your bladder as you used to before. And I was like, no, that's not true. And now that I had a baby and I'm 31 years old, like one day I was like, oh my gosh, I gotta get to the bathroom. I have to go so bad because I was like cracking up so hard, y'all.
I feel the same way. I actually have not had a baby, but I feel like I get bloated a lot and I have the same issue. So that actually happened in front of I was at the Eiffel Tower and I was like coughing because I had allergies and so I like urinated all over myself. So all my pictures of myself in Paris are like me with like urine all over myself, which is too much information. But yeah, in a very long way, I feel you for sure.
Y'all, that was our TMI commercial break. But hey, it
Exactly. But I hear
happens.
you. We have to do I'm looking into like pelvic floor strengthening conditioning exercises because I feel like I need to like strengthen my pelvis. So if anyone has some good pelvic exercises, hit me up.
Yeah, maybe I'll get someone on the podcast. I will talk about that because I think a lot of women and people in general could definitely use that. And so now I'm going to throw the ball in your court. Is there anything else that we have not covered regarding the work that you're doing that you want to share to add value to this conversation, Meryl?
Oh, that's so good. I would say right now it's always an ongoing thing. And maybe you've talked about this with past guests, but I really believe in like a morning routine. And I don't know if you have, maybe you've talked about it before, but do you have like I mean, obviously it's different now that you're a new mom. You're like, my routine is just waking up and dealing with a screaming child. But like, I don't know how people are successful without a morning routine because to me, it's kind of like the foundation of everything. So um yeah, I think I'm still trying to wake up and drink lemon water and do all the stretching and journaling and all that kind of stuff, but I really highly believe in a morning routine.
Yes, a morning routine is hands down key and critical. And I did actually have a guest on my podcast some segments ago that did talk about the importance of a morning routine. And I do have a morning routine now, even though I'm a mom to a 2 month old. I wake up, I'm either nursing at the boob or I'm pumping. So either or, 'cause she definitely has to have her food, then take a nice hot shower because a shower just wakes me up. In the shower, I say my gratitudes, my affirmations, I may pray. Then afterwards, I'll either listen to something that is edifying me, whether it's something regarding personal development, a sermon, a message on YouTube, something that is either motivating, inspiring, or etc. Or I'll listen to some music, something that just gets me pumped up because like I want to have something with high energy, high vibes, get started on a high positive note because how you start your day is going to be how you end your day. And whenever you start on a positive note, like all of the trivial, minute things is not going to matter that much. And if it does, you're just going to sit in it for a little bit, but then you easily need to like switch gears so you could get on with your day.
Yeah. What time do you wake up at?
Ooh, so right now it varies. Like sometimes I'm up at 3 a.m. because I
Whoa.
have yeah, well, only because the baby, like she doesn't have a
Okay,
set
yeah.
schedule yet. So whenever she's hungry, it's like I have to be on demand. It's the supply and demand in order to make sure the baby has the proper nourishment that she needs.
That's true. Okay. I'm like a 7:30 girl, but yeah, I can imagine with babies. I feel like my boyfriend and I it would be like hot potato if we had a baby where it's like, we don't, not my time.
Yes. Before the baby, sometimes I would be up by 5:30, 6 at the latest, because sometimes I just hit that snooze because I was like, my eyeballs would like to see the back of my head right now.
Yes.
So, Meryl, audience, I definitely want to give Meryl a chance to plug her information so you can connect with her if you want to learn more about her journey in the stand-up comedy world and some of her other incredible endeavors. So, Meryl, please plug your website, share where you're primarily on, whether it's social media and what platform that is.
Well, thank you so much. And you were such a good podcast host. I mean it. I really had fun with you. You're a really like eloquent and articulate host. So thank you so much, first of all. Yes, the podcast is called Campfire Sht Show, and that's SHT. And it's a comedy show, as you mentioned before, about the shit show moments in life. So you can find me there. And then on Instagram, I'm Meryl, Meryl, and then my last name is Klemow. And I have all my link tree links there.
Amazing. And thank you so much, Meryl, for just coming on and shooting the breeze with me and just sharing and holding space because I definitely enjoyed this segment. I got a lot of laughter in. So, audience, I want you to go follow Meryl, learn more about her and what she's doing. Her contact information will be in the show notes. So, all you need to do is read, scroll on down, and tap in. Make sure you like, comment, follow, and subscribe Gems Podcast and learn more about the content that is coming into the community. It is combined of solo and interview style conversations. And for those of you out there who are interested in partnering with me, we are looking for brand sponsors. It is paid sponsorship because it does take money to fuel the mission and movement behind the show. If you want more info, hit me up on Instagram at Genesis Amaris Kemp, or you could go to my website, genesisamarisKemp.net, to find more info. And until the next guest, next segment, peace, love, and lots of blessings. Have yourself an amazing day. And remember, this famous quote by Babe Ruth: never let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game. So, on the other side of your fear is victory. On the other side of fear is you doing something incredibly awesome. And why is it about you? Because you're the only one that can do it. That's why you're uniquely made for such a time as this. So, hit that ball out the park, make a home run, and do everything you were created to do.